Earlier this year, we were told anywhere between, 4, 5, 6, 7 Fed cuts in 2025. The mortgage world and a lot of financial markets hedge our bets based on these comments, right? So we were like, gosh, this is really, really great news for 2025. We're expected to see rates maybe hovering in and around 5 or 5.5% for a 30-year fixed rate come summertime. And then as soon as these comments came out, the market plummeted.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mortgage Minute. My name is Matt Thomas. I'm joined by my co-host, Brian Dewald. And Brian, we are finally in 2025. We've been wondering what the outlook in mortgages might look like at this point. We're going to go over today in our video here. We're going to talk about the Fed meeting that happened back in December. And then, of course, we'll talk about what's happened since and what's to come this week. There are some big reports that are coming out this week that I think are going to impact mortgages and where things are headed. I'm looking forward to discussing the year ahead. Brian, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so, kind of going back in time here a little bit to right before Christmas. I think it was the December 17th, 18th was the most recent Fed meeting. And although they lowered 25 basis points, that was the expectation, right? So the mortgage world, we've talked about this many a times, where the mortgage world anticipates what the Fed is going to do. So they hit the expectation. But what happened afterwards was not very good news for mortgage bonds, mortgage prices, mortgage rates, and a lot of financial markets, right? There was a pretty good skid from a standpoint where we saw, the Dow go down a bunch. I believe it was the worst 7-day stretch since the 70s. So not overly
Since the 70s?
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere.
Wow.
Not really great news after the Fed meeting. So basically what happened, and this is what sucks about, Fed comments and everything else. Earlier this year, we were told anywhere between, 4, 5, 6, 7 Fed cuts in 2025. The mortgage world and a lot of financial markets hedge our bets based on these comments, right? So we were like, gosh, this is really, really great news for 2025. We're expected to see rates maybe hovering in and around 5 or 5.5% for a 30-year fixed rate come summertime. And then as soon as these comments came out, the market plummeted big time. So to put that in perspective, I believe it was a Thursday the comments were done. So looking at Friday's prices, right? So let's take a $500,000 loan amount, not a sales price, but just that's the financed amount. The extra cost, if we were to keep the same rate between Friday morning and Thursday evening in closing costs or fee or points, or however you want to look at it, was $4,000. It had increased that much literally overnight. So that's
4,000 from what number?
From zero to $4,000. The same rate Friday morning cost $4,000 more on Friday morning than it did when we closed the market on Thursday evening. So
what?
So that's just the knee-jerk reaction to markets not liking what the Fed is, talking about when they had their post-meeting commentary. So there was a pretty funny little meme that my friend Matt Thomas put together and sent me that kind of showed Powell as the Grinch. So, I mean, it's true. He just, from a mortgage standpoint, ruined Christmas. So that was not great news.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone had a better Christmas than, just what happened when Jerome Powell stole Christmas as the Grinch. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We've been kind of holding out to see what the fallout would be. It's been about a month since we talked last. And I think in general, I don't like to, to pepper people during the holidays with extra emails and notifications and updates and things like that. Obviously, if there's something critical and if there is something that is, timely, especially if we're doing business, that's totally different. But in terms of an update, plus, that these markets reactions take time to kind of develop. So what we've seen since then, Brian, I mean, we're hovering right around the 7% mark, roughly, for our interest rates. And again, we don't quote interest rates directly here on this show, but we do. That's generally what we've been looking at. You can look that up in 100 different places. So 7% is about where we're at. Not the best, not the worst, but certainly because of prices where they're at, it's always impactful to have that 7% mark. What I've seen nationally is that home sales have kind of been on the rise, or they were a little bit higher than expected, despite kind of what we've gone through with the election and with some bad news from the Fed. We're expecting, obviously, the spring market to sort of kick in here soon. What are you expecting in terms of mortgage rates looking forward?
It's hard to look too far forward, right? Like we take what the Federal Reserve says and bake that in and make anticipations and everything else. So, uh, the longer term outlook isn't nearly as positive as it was a few weeks ago. But as fast as they can turn on a dime, they can turn on a dime the other way. So, it's hard to
Sure.
look too far past, the next few days or couple of weeks.
Brings
The
us
Fed
to
meeting.
what's going on this week, right? We've got a
Yeah,
relatively potentially volatile week ahead, and even if it's not volatile, we
potentially.
do still have some sort of these big reports, economic reports that
Yeah.
are released that people react to, the market reacts to, and then rates adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon
Yes.
there?
Well, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, right? The two major things that push mortgage rates up and down are employment data and inflation data. And we've got two employment reports this week, one from ADP, which is monitoring, new hired folks on payroll. ADP is the largest supplier of payroll in the country. So they give us a report, as well as BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We've talked about that in the past as well. The BLS report stinks to high heaven, because it's a wacky report, in my opinion.
It feels like it's
But
manipulated potentially. Yeah.
it's I feel like it's manipulated. Yeah. So, I don't know what the new regime is going to bring. Hopefully there's talks about, getting some things corrected. It would sure be ideal if that was the case in our world, and the Fed could make decisions based on accurate data. So if the BLS will put that out. Anyway, point is, there's today's Tuesday, January 7th, and tomorrow comes the ADP report, and on Friday is the BLS report. So there's some big data that has it has potential to move us up or down from a mortgage rate perspective. We don't know what those numbers are until they come out, of course. Two big reports coming out this week.
Brian, we didn't talk about this in our pre-show, but I'm curious what you're seeing in terms of mortgage applications and people that you're
Yeah.
helping. It's January 7th. It's cold outside. I've got my flannel on. It's
Yep.
snowing. Maybe not
Sure.
necessarily where you are, but
Yeah, it's temporary.
nonetheless, we've got weather that sort of affects things. But in
Yeah.
general, as we talked about, like the spring market is close. Some people would say
Yep.
the unofficial start of the spring market in terms of the buying season or the selling season starts after the Super Bowl, having nothing to do with football
Right.
whatsoever. Just
Sure.
happens to be sort of a timing thing. That being
Right.
said, there are people in the market right now. Who are you?
Yes.
What are you seeing in terms of helping folks right now? That's positive.
I have had more, you and I have talked a lot about this. I track almost everything. And the last, day and a half here of work hours and everything else I put in is the busiest it's been in months. I can tell you that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've got 5 new purchase contracts. Here we are Tuesday at 1:15 since yesterday morning. So lots and lots of new leads. Not lots of people reaching out to me to have conversations just in terms of figures. Hey, I'm looking at this house tomorrow. I'd like to put an offer on that, whatever. So the activity has seriously spiked here just within the last couple of days, which has been fantastic.
No, that's great. And that's ultimately where the rubber meets the road. When we go
Yep.
over all the things that we discuss on the show, and it tends to be economic reports and such, and how that affects mortgage rates, ultimately it comes down to people who are buying, and even that affects people who are considering just selling. And if whether you're
Sure.
selling just to sell or selling looking forward to buying, ultimately when we've got people that are already jumping in the game now that the holidays are behind us, it's not even mid-January yet. That's exciting news, but that also potentially indicates or points to maybe some additional activity, which is always positive in our world, but it can change things in terms of affordability and pricing and things like that. For homeowners, it bumps prices up potentially if the market gets vigorous. For home buyers, getting in while things are a little slow and sleepy might be a more advantageous for you than waiting until deeper into the spring. But
Could be.
we, as always, are here to discuss those things with you. I encourage you to reach out and call. Anything that you're not getting from this particular video, we'd love to discuss with you in terms of how your particular situation is impacted. And we would love to help you both on the real estate and mortgage sides of things. So until next time, we will see you. Thanks for joining us on another Mortgage Minute.
Good to see you. Thank you.